It's the 11th of December 2024. The year is coming to a close, 2 weeks away from present gifting day, and the FIA World Motorsport Council finally announces the anticipated World Rally Championship technical regulations for the top class, set to come into effect in 2027. The WRC have been in a bit of a pickle in recent years, with costs absolutely skyrocketing through the roof and shaky views from competitors and fans regarding the direction the FIA went with the sport in recent times. And these new rules, which the FIA refer to as WRC 27, are meant to bring the sport back into the direction it should be taking in order to recapture the glory of the past. And whilst there are many positives the FIA did here, one of the extremely rare W's they made this year, there are areas where question marks have suddenly spawned. So how do we get to this point? In today's video, we're going to have a small chat about the new 2027 WRC regulations. And by the way, when I say regulations, I refer to the technical regulations of the cars. We'll quickly go through how we got to the point we are at right now, the main points of these rules, and giving my opinions, my personal opinions that is, on these regulations, as well as go through what I would personally change in these rules, what I would keep, what I would change, so on and so forth. So without wasting too much of our precious time, let's talk WRC 2027. So before we get into the real meat and potatoes of these new rules, we first need to quickly understand how we got to the point we are at right now. In late 2016, there was a desire to increase, for some reason on my script here I have to increase written twice, don't know how I did that, but whatever. There was a desire to increase the speeds of the cars because there was a perception at the time that the cars up until 2016 were a bit too slow. So to fix this, the FIA decided to take the cars, add some more power, and increase the amount of downforce generating bits in their size. And hey presto, we have cars which should create a spectacle and bump up the popularity of the sport, bring in more manufacturers and so on. And whilst the increased speeds was certainly a very nice thing to witness, for the sport as a whole, maybe not the best move. You see, whenever you try to make a car go faster and in general better, you're naturally gonna be spending hella stacks to do so. And unfortunately, these high downforce, high powered monsters did increase the costs of running a WRC entry for the whole season. So these cars didn't last that long, as we would only see these cars compete from 2017 to 2021. So to try to reduce costs and make the sport more appealing to manufacturers, in 2022 the FIA thought, let's take the current cars, trim down a bit of downforce, let's add some 8-volt batteries to the system, because that is all the buzz in the road car business at the moment, and surely this will steer the sport in the correct direction. Yeah, that didn't exactly go to plan, did it? These new cars, known as Rally 1, and these are the cars that we are seeing right now competing in WRC, would skyrocket the costs even more, plus with the shocking reliability of the hybrid stuff, the situation went even more downhill for the sport. So it looks like when these Rally 1 rules were being made, someone or something accidentally secretly played the Uno reverse card when the cost-cutting measure was brought to the table. With the opinions of the reliability of the hybrid unit reaching a very low, it was decided very late this year that the hybrid and electric power stuff would be ripped out of the cars and thrown in the bin for 2025 and 26, with brand new cars on the way in 2027. I honestly don't know what the FIA were on this year, but my god, I really need to know what they were truly on, because all this back and forth and questionable decision making is slowly turning into a bit of a clown show. And it's not only the rallying business that has been in hot water this year. I know I didn't go in super much detail, and I probably won't go in super detailed details for the rest of the video, but I honestly don't have the mental capacity to do that right now. I like to keep things fairly simple. Sorta kinda. So now we roughly know how we got to this point. Let's actually talk about the new incoming WRC 27 cars. One of the big talking points of these new cars is of course the cost. The current Rally 1 cars cost roughly $1 million, and you don't need someone with the knowledge of Einstein to realize that $1 million is a really big number. You could buy 3 Rally 2 cars and still have some cash to spare. So obviously with this big price gap, the cost of the top cars really need to come down, and the FIA have stated that the new cars should cost no more than €345,000, which is more than 50% less than the current cars, in fact nearly a third of the current Rally 1 car costs. So in theory, this should allow for more cars to be run more easily across the season. And not only that, but the running costs for the season are set to be down as well, with limits being set on the number of personnel, reducing logistic transport costs, increasing the use of local facilities, and so on and so forth. Another major talking point is regarding what kind of power sources will be allowed. Notice I said power sources, not engines. That is because for 2027, the teams will have freedom to choose between a petrol engine, a hybrid, or electric powertrain to power their car. And we have already seen how good this can be, with the World Rallycross Championship allowing teams to run either a petrol engine or an electric motor. Now remember the World Rallycross Championship, because they will be important a bit later. In their statement regarding this rule, the FIA said, and I quote, "The World Rally Championship was one of the pioneers of sustainably fueled motorsports, mandating its use in 2022, and with the 2027 regulations, there is built-in freedom between sustainably fueled internal combustion engines, hybrid powertrains, or fully electric solutions. The initial target is for competitors to utilize sustainably fueled ICE internal combustion engines in 2027, with diversification including hybrid systems or fully electric technologies that could be introduced at a later stage." End quote. So what this basically means is that to begin with, we're going to see pretty much most, if not all, the teams running petrol-powered cars, and we'll get onto the specifics of that a bit later, with the opportunity and possibility of hybrid and or electric powertrains to be used later down the line. So this will add a big element of freedom for the team to experiment with different types of power delivery and potential innovation possibilities. Also, a device called a torque meter will be used to regulate the power and its delivery if we're going to have a situation where in a single year we're going to have both petrol, hybrid and or electric powered cars competing at the same time in the same season to regulate the power and to make it a level playing field. That is not the only freedom selection bit here, because in terms of the body and chassis, every car will be using an identical space frame chassis, but this time it'll allow teams to run various types of bodywork such as hatchbacks, SUVs, saloon cars, and even bespoke bodywork will be allowed as well. Wait a minute, hold up. Sedans? Allowed in rallying again? Could this present the opportunity for the comeback we all want to see to finally come true? Well, I certainly hope so. But anyway, again, a bit more freedom will be brought in, so the cars will be better distinguishable from one another, and a level of uniqueness will be added to the sport, which should give it a bit more spectacle, if that makes sense. And one more talking point, which is a bit of an out of nowhere, this one, is possible crossover. Now, I told you to remember Rallycross. If you didn't, check yourself. If you remembered, good, because this is where they come into play. Now, there is no confirmation when it'll happen, but there will be a potential, very big possibility that there will be a potential crossover between the World Rallycross and the WRC. What this basically means is that one team or one manufacturer can build one car to compete in the World Rally Championship, and then they can use that exact same car with the exact same specs to compete in the World Rallycross Championship, and vice versa. Now, in my personal opinion, I think in general it is a step in the right direction. There are many positives. However, there are some pieces of the WRC 27 puzzle that leave me with some question marks. The cost reduction is obviously nice, I'm all for that, but I almost feel like that it's a bit too low. Like, I don't really know, with all these bits and bobs that these new cars will have, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to make it that cheap without something either being extremely sacrificed, compromised, or being extremely fragile and unreliable. The variety of power options is also very nice, but me personally, I am not the biggest fan of electric powertrains. They just don't give the same good feeling to me as a petrol engine would, especially the sound. That is my main critique regarding this electric power hate. I really rate the idea of being able to use different types of bodies as well, but there are two things here that I'm not so sure of. Number one, I don't really like the fact that more and more body parts are becoming rally car only and less of the car is shared. In fact, I think almost no parts are being shared at the moment between the rally car and its road going counterparts. And number two, I don't really fancy the idea of big SUVs competing in rallying. Can you imagine a Range Rover of all things just messing around in the WRC? That will look a bit bizarre. And the potential Rallycross crossover, I have good taste towards. I really like that. So in general, I mostly have good views on these new rules, but with a few noticeable scars. Now I mentioned some areas in the new rules which are not quite my cup of tea. So what would I change? What would I present to the table? Now before I do move on with this bit, I do need to mention that these will be my own personal opinions, okay? Don't even think about coming after me with sharp pointy bits. But instead, feel free to politely write in the comment section what you would change in these new WRC 27 regulations, because every human is entitled to their own personal opinion after all. Now the first tweak I would make is increasing the budget cap. Now I know this sounds sus initially, but I honestly not really sure if 345,000 is a good budget without things being compromised on the cars. So knowing what kind of components and what kind of technology will be going into these cars, so to create a good balance of the cost being low enough but also not too ambitious, I will set the price at 450 to 500,000. I feel like knowing everything that's going into these cars, I think this will be a more realistic target. Plus it's still half or just under half the price of the current cars. Next we head over to the power section. Now the freedom of how teams can power their cars I really like, but I'm gonna do things a bit differently here. First, I will take the hybrid and electric motors and send them deep inside the bin and only allow petrol-powered engines with 100% sustainable fuels. What I will do here is allow teams to run any type of engine they want, inline 5, inline 3, V6, V8, you name it, you can do it. However, I will add in two catches. Firstly, the teams will only be allowed to run engines that are from the manufacturer's range from their road cars, so no bespoke engines for rallying only. And secondly, when the engine is chosen and has finished being built, I will use that aforementioned torque meter or something similar to regulate the power delivery of each engine so they perform identically, but at the same time still keep the engine's uniqueness. So again, like with the bodywork mentioned previously and what will be mentioned later, there is an element of uniqueness in the sport. And there are many racing series out there that do something similar if not the same. Then regarding the car bodies, which I literally just mentioned a few seconds ago, I'll take the space frame chassis and double wishbone suspensions that are going to be used in 2027 and send them to the pits of hell. Instead, what I'm going to be doing here is force the teams to use more road car components, revert to the suspension system that is currently being used in the current Rally 1 cars, and I would also use something like a tube chassis, or maybe a monocoque chassis. I still can't decide between the two, but the point is, no space frame chassis. Also, I will allow different body types to be used, but I will not allow SUVs to be used. I will allow hatchbacks, sedans, coupes or coupes, and bespoke shapes are allowed too. And finally, I'm all in with the Rallycross crossover. I think this will hugely benefit both series in many ways. And so that is my general thoughts on the new 2027 WRC technical regulations and what I would personally change. Now since we are just over 2 years away from these new rules coming into effect, some of the things we just went through could easily change within the next few months, and as a result my video will most likely become outdated, but hey, anything can happen. You gotta expect the unexpected in life sometimes. Feel free to let me know what you think of these new rules. Do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad? Is it going in the right direction or not? And do also let me know what you would change in these rules. But I'm gonna sign it off here. If you enjoyed the video, then show some support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel as well for future uploads. So until next time, goodbye.